Peace, love, knowledge, and protection to you and yours. I'm coming at you today with a hip and glute activation and mobility routine that I do on the daily. I usually do this before I squat or I do deadlifts. I find it extremely beneficial to do this because I myself have dealt with lower back pain, and I realized it was due to not properly activating my hips and my glutes. Now, I feel this is something that most women already have down, but I feel a lot of men need to take heed to this and follow along, because I find that the whole sciatica, lower back pain, etc. is usually more common among men than women. And I find that simply because men don't train their glutes a lot. Now, look at the root word of glute. Glue. I truly believe, since it's right in the middle of your upper body and lower body, your glutes act as the connection and the bridge between your upper body and your lower body. And without them fully activated, along with your hips fully activated, you won't have as much strength, you won't be as coordinated, you'll miss out on a lot of good lifts that you could be doing. And straight up, you can get rid of a lot of lower back pain just by doing simple activation like this. Now, you can do hip opener yoga, you can do simple movements like these, but I'm just stressing over and over again, especially to my men out there, my brothers, activate your glutes. I know some exercises may seem a little girly or feminine, but that's all in your perception. Exercise is for everyone. There's no movement that's more girly, there's no movement that's whatever. Just throw that all out the window, because that's plain perception. Now, I developed a mild sciatica about, I want to say 4 years ago now, mainly because I was always at the computer doing computer work. So I was sitting constantly, I didn't get up too often to move around, and even then, once you sit too often, you make those muscles completely dormant. Now, around the same time, my partner started doing a whole lot of glute activation exercises because she did her own research, and I followed along, and eventually I completely got rid of my lower back pain. I don't even have a bit of lower back pain these days. And a lot of my lower back pain I found was in my hips, not just my lower back. So if you don't have your glutes activated, if you don't have strong glute muscles, when you stand up straight, your center of gravity is sitting on your lower back rather than your glutes. Also, when you squat without activated glutes or glute mass, most of your tension will go into your knee. This is why a lot of people, along with lower back problems, develop knee problems. Now, I've dealt with both, but since starting these kind of movements, I've completely eliminated them. Now, this movement I'm doing right here, this is a personal movement I made for myself. I noticed I do a lot of, let's say, Superman type movements where you're completely straight and you lift your feet and your head up above the ground. I find all those Superman extending exercises great, but I realized through doing them over and over again that I still had some slight, let's say, the feeling of deactivation in my twisting muscles in my back. I realized they weren't activated. I felt it when I walked, I felt it after I squatted or deadlift. So I incorporated these on my own, just by using my own reason and my own logic. So do things that work for you. Experiment with your own body and your own movements and your own discomforts, and work with them, work through them, figure out exactly what works for you, activates your muscles, and makes you comfortable. Now, it's really important to take the time to do this. Don't rush through the movements. Really feel what you're working. Now, this particular movement right here, I realized through doing a lot of yoga routines that this is one of the greatest glute activators for me personally. I start every single workout session with this movement right here. Now, this isn't quite the way it's done in yoga. With yoga, you have more of a still stance. you will rotate the hips forward, but I do it strictly for mobility purposes. So while I'm sitting in the stretch or the posture, I move around a bit. I feel out my glute, I feel out my feet, the connection to the floor. I really try to find my balance and get my hips fired up. Now this movement too, I really enjoy doing. I really find it opens up my hip and my hamstrings. And this movement right here I learned from Ido Portal. Now this right here for me was an absolute game changer. This is something you see babies do all the time. Maybe not the reaching for the sky portion of the movement, but just this natural squat. Anytime a baby starts walking and they're upright, you notice that when they want to reach for something, they drop right into a squat like this. Now this is something you might have to work into. Like, don't be afraid to take your time with it. Go down slow, stay up on your toes if you need to, but eventually progress down to the floor. Make sure you're flat on your feet. Another thing that really helps is when you hold a kettlebell or any kind of weight up to your chest as your center of gravity, and it pushes you deeper into your hips, which is amazing. Now this is a basic yoga sequence. I took that because I found it just really opens up my lower back. Once again, I'm going back into this movement right here. This is my #1 movement. I can't stress that enough. If you have lower back problems, do this all the time. Press into your glutes. Here's a little advancement of that movement. And notice again, I am in movement. I am constantly bouncing, moving around. I'm feeling out my glute. I'm not always staying completely still like a yoga pose. But we're not looking for stillness here. We're looking for activation. We're looking for electricity. We're looking for movement. So even here, I'm going back and I'm twisting my back a little bit. Now, these movements, these are all movements I learned from my partner. These are amazing. If you have lower back pain, this will completely activate the side of your hips, the medius portion of your glute. It will fire it up. So you might find if you haven't done these in X amount of years or ever, that they really burn at the start. So try and give yourself 10 to 15 repetitions of these exercises right here. So do one, move right into the other. This is an abdominal activation plus a hip flexor activation, and it will completely fire up that area where your hip connects right to your leg. And as you can see right here in this movement from the back, you can see some lower back movement. You can see right where I'm hinging at the hip and the glutes. That whole area is being fired up. Now, this is the area you're probably lacking if you have lower back pain, because this is the area I was lacking. You'll notice over time through constant repetition of this movement and doing it daily that the area where you're lacking glutes will probably fully fill in and you will have fully developed glutes. Now, I do suggest doing these every day if you do have lower back pain or sciatica, providing that it doesn't cause further pain. Now, there's a difference between the burn and there's a difference between actual physical pain where you just can't take it, it's unbearable. If you experience any of that, you need to consult your doctor, your physician, your chiropractor, your physiotherapist, etc. But if it's just simple muscle pain, tough through it. Keep your rep range small if you have to. Stay within 6 to 10 reps instead of 10 to 15. For example, my partner does up to 30 reps of these sometimes because she can tolerate it. And eventually you can do things like add bands, resistance. There's plenty of things you can do with this. Now, these I just recently started doing and I've been seeing nothing but results with these. I feel absolutely great doing these. Big hip circles. Now, I got this idea from two things. Doing circles with your arms and your shoulders back and forth. That was my first kind of giveaway. Like, if that's how we activate our shoulders, I kind of see your glutes as the same kind of muscle as your shoulders if you think about it. The way your arms attach to your shoulders and the way they can move so freely, and not like the way your elbow and your knee can just move up and down. I basically combine two movements, the side raises and having your foot to the front and doing raises like that. So you just complete the motion by doing a full circle. Now, if you haven't done these, like I said, they will burn. You will feel the pain. So do about, I'd say if you're a beginner, 5 just big round circles forward and backwards. Doesn't matter which way you start, just complete the repetitions and increase the repetition through time if it feels good. I actually just started doing these, so you can even see right here the way my lower back is kind of jerking into the movement, trying to make up for my lack of mind muscle connection there, but eventually over time it will connect and move properly. Now, this movement right here I got from the McGill Top 3 when I was at like the peak of my lower back pain. I was looking up solutions and remedies. This was a suggestion from, I believe, Chris Kendall, TheRawAdvantage's channel. I can link that down below. I started with 3 movements known as the McGill Top 3 for my lower back pain. I saw some improvements, but it wasn't the end all be all, because I noticed over time the problem lied in the fact that my glutes weren't developed and activated, and it wasn't so much just lower back strengthening I needed. So that movement strengthens obliques and lower back, but I realized I needed more glute activation. Now this right here is a great way to activate your glutes and your hip hinge capabilities. So anytime you do something like deadlifts or squats, I always recommend throwing these in there, because this is the exact movement you'll need to get back up from your deadlifts or squats. Now I can do very high reps of these. I usually do around 20 to 30 during my warm-ups, maybe even 2 or 3 sets. If you want more resistance, because this is a more basic movement, add a band around your knees and push your knees away from each other, which will add to more medius activation, which is necessary for healing and curing the lower back. Another thing to watch out for here, make sure you take your time on the way down. Really feel the negative portion of the repetition and not just focusing on the positive portion of the repetition. You can also perform them with half reps and even pulsing. Pulse at the top. Do like 3 pulses before you go back down, 4 pulses, 5 pulses. Doesn't matter, just feel out the movement. This right here is known as cat and cow pose in Western yoga. So I do the traditional poses, take deep breaths in and out both ways, but I add a little bit of hip movement and lower back movement in there just to really stretch it out and really get that mind muscle connection in before I start my training. Take your time with these, make sure you get a good stretch, and make sure you are breathing deep. Throughout all these exercises, keep in tune with your breath, because breath is the most important thing to connect your mind to your muscles. You need to breathe through your body to get that connection, to fill in those areas that have been asleep for so long. Now this movement right here, I know it's not popular amongst a lot of men who train, but this right here is absolutely vital. I promise you, if you want to get rid of back pain, if you want full glutes and full activation of the glutes, trust me, you need to hit the glute from every angle. No different than the way you need to hit your shoulder from every angle. You have your front delts, your side delts, your rear delts. It's the same thing. You need to hit your gluteus maximus, medius, and whatever other part there is. But I'm pretty sure there's like 3 heads, much like the shoulders. So just make sure you hit it from every single angle possible. And finally, I have fire hydrants. These are very simple to do. Just lift your leg like a dog pissing on a fire hydrant, hence the name fire hydrant. Take your time, squeeze at the top, make sure you really feel the burn. And this is another movement, if you haven't done too much of, it will burn a lot. You can do high repetitions of this movement as well. Make sure you breathe, make sure you focus. And to end the routine, back into the squat to really sit and dig into the hips, let the blood flow, let everything rest. You can move around a bit like this if you want. Get the hips really mobile. And right here, notice how I'm using my elbows to push into my knees to really open up the hips on the inside especially. moment in this pose. Let the hips really open up. Let the blood flow. Take some deep breaths and you are fully activated. I want to thank you for watching. I hope this really helps some of you with lower back pain out there. Catch you next time.